I'm going to upgrade my Envenom from this to this. Today, I'm going to show you a build where the exact same character with an exact same gear can hit an Envenom that does literally 20 times more damage. As you just saw, when all the stats, talents, and enhancement effects are stacked together properly, the damage difference on Envenom can become almost absurd. By abusing that insane burst window, you can instantly delete targets the moment they get careless or run out of defensive cooldowns. Also, this build turns one of the Assassination rogue's biggest weaknesses, its slow, bleed and dot based playstyle, into an ultimate class fantasy, killing your enemy instantly with poisons. Let's start with hero talents. For this build, I recommend Deathstalker. It is slightly more complicated to use than Fatebound, but I don't think it is difficult enough to be intimidating. There are 3 key talents you need to understand. First, Symbolic Victory. This makes Kingsbane increase the damage of your next 2 Envenoms by 18%. Second, Precise Killer. This increases your critical strike damage bonus by 20%. And third, and the most important talent, is Darkest Night. When you consume the final stack of Deathstalker's Mark, your next Envenom is guaranteed to critically strike and deals additional damage. And recently, Deathstalker received a very timely buff. The Darkest Night effect now increases Envenom damage by 35%, up from 30%. But here is the important part. What we are really trying to abuse is not the Deathstalker's Mark that comes from Garroth itself. In fact, we want to consume Deathstalker's Mark as quickly as possible. The real core of this build is what comes after that, Darkest Night. Once Darkest Night is active, Envenom is guaranteed to crit. So the entire goal of this build is to stack as many damage modifiers as possible into that guaranteed critical Envenom and turn it into a massive poison execution. For the rogue class tree, we first take Deep Cuts, which increases the damage of our finish moves by 6%. Then we take Supercharger. When you use Kingsbane, Supercharger gives you 2 additional supercharged combo points, and those combo points become even stronger through Forced Induction, giving your finish moves even more bonus damage. I tested several different talent setups, but personally, if I don't take energy related talents like Vigor or Thistle Tea, the build just feels way too slow and uncomfortable to play, so I strongly recommend taking both of them. And there is one more important talent, which is Subterfuge. This is mandatory because later in the rotation, we need to be able to use improved Garroth properly. Without Subterfuge, that part of the setup becomes much harder to execute. The biggest downside, in my opinion, is that we can't take Without a Trace in this setup. That means we only get 1 Vanish. And honestly, when you actually play the build, you do feel that limitation. It can be a little uncomfortable at first, but once you get used to it, it is still very playable. Next, let's move on to the Assassination Rogue talent setup. There are honestly too many important talents to cover, so for this video, I'm only going to focus on the ones directly related to Envenom. First, we take Sanguine Stratagem, which increases our maximum combo points by 1 and also boosts the damage of our finish moves by over 5%. You always want to cast your finishing move with more than 5 combo points every time. That way, you will also consume Deathstalker's Mark and trigger Darkest Night, which is a huge part of your burst damage. Next up is Amplifying Poison. This talent consumes 10 stacks of your poison to increase the damage of your next Envenom by a massive 35%, making it one of the most important pieces of the build. Since you pretty much have to run Wound Poison in PvP, I highly recommend taking Dragon Tempered Blades so you can apply a total of 4 poisons, 2 lethal and 2 non-lethal. Personally, I run Wound Poison, Amplifying Poison, Crippling Poison, and Numbing Poison. This setup gives you strong healing reduction, more Envenom damage, and plenty of utility for controlling your target. Next we have Rapid Injection, which increases the damage of your second Envenom after the first one by 30%. Then there's Inspiring Strike, which provides a flat 5% increase to your overall damage, and the Zoldyck Recipe, which boosts your nature's damage by 30% against targets below 30% health. Finally, the Apex talent, Implacable, increases Envenom damage by another 10% and further boosts your nature damage by 20%. As you can see, an incredible number of talents are directly tied to Envenom, When you look at all these interactions together, it's pretty clear that Blizzard wants Assassination rogues to lean heavily into Envenom based damage in the current meta. Looking at stats, agility and versatility are obviously your top priorities for PvP. For secondary stats, I strongly recommend stacking Mastery. Mastery increases your nature damage, and since Envenom deals nature damage, it scales exceptionally well with this build. The rotation is actually pretty simple. You can open with Chipshot from Stealth, or you can start with Garrot. It really depends on the matchup. For example, against a mage, opening with Chipshot often isn't ideal because they will immediately blink away. In that situation, starting with Garrot and applying silence can be a much better option. To simplify the rotation, start by building combo points with Garrot, then apply Rupture to get your core dot running. After that, take the full advantage of the extended stealth window from Subterfuge and keep using Garrot whenever possible to generate larger amounts of combo points. Our priority here is not to do damage with Mutilate, but is to generate combo points as quickly and efficiently as possible so I can get into my finishing windows, especially in Envenom, as fast as possible. The burst sequence looks like this. Use Envenom first to spend and reset your combo points. Then immediately follow up with Deathmark, Kingsbane, Sheev, and another Envenom. The reason we use Envenom before starting the burst is to activate the 30% damage bonus for the next Envenom from Rapid Injection talent. And even if you're sitting at 0 combo points afterward, that's not a problem. The Apex talent immediately grants full combo points when you cast Kingsbane, while also generating a massive number of amplifying poison stacks. That means you can easily reach more than 10 stack of poison during the burst window, giving your next Envenom an additional 35% damage increase. Of course, you can use a simple macro to bind your trinket or ratio with Kingsbane for even more burst, which I don't have because I'm a direct tier. Now let's look at how this works in a real match. In actual PvP, it doesn't matter how strong your burst is if the enemy still have defensive cooldowns available. Even the biggest burst windows can be completely shut down by a well-timed defensive. That's why in most situations it's better to pressure the target first and force out their cooldowns. Once those defensives are gone, that's when you commit to the burst combo. In this fight against the warrior, the Darkest Night is already active, so I'm looking for an opportunity to unleash the combo, but the warrior has just used a major defensive cooldown. I finished off the warrior with the burst as soon as his defensive faded away. That's it for today's build. Thank you for watching.